So what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at protection. We're going to add a protection case from start to finish. Hopefully the ID search is going to work, but mine sometimes can be a little bit temperamental. So hopefully it'll work. If it doesn't, we'll just proceed forward. We're going to show you how you refer a protection case to a specialist within your firm or with somebody else within your firm. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. So you can refer it from within a mortgage case, or you can physically reassign the case. Okay, so we'll have a look at that. Then we'll look at quoting protection in acre, how straightforward it is, but some of the things that you might want to be aware of if you're having to change your quotes. For example, if you're looking for term assurance and you want decreasing term, we have to create the product and then go in and amend it slightly. It is in development to give you the options to do that all at the front end, but that is something that's not a major issue and it's easy to do. So we'll do that. We'll create a case with some life cover and a couple of income protection policies, and then we'll have a look at the suitability report. We'll make sure we go through how you create your suitability report, how you add things and what you can do. And for some of you, this will be a refresher. For some of you, it will be brand new. But we'll make sure that we go through that. And we'll also make sure that we again reiterate that the fact that you have to upload the application form and the documents to the product. Again, so we'll show you that. And any questions that go in the chat, Ollie will deal with as we go along. And anything that's network related, I'll try and pick up at the end. But if for whatever reason we don't have time, we will take all of the chat and we'll produce a Q&A document. Okay, and that will go on to the Acre Hub, which I'll show you where that lives in case you're not sure. Okay, so let's get started. So again, most of you will be familiar with the dashboard. Most of you will already have had the opportunity to put some cases on, put some test cases on. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a protection case from start to finish. And we're going to go through, and as I say, we're going to look at some life and critical illness and some income protection, because they are predominantly the policies that you will discuss. I know there'll be individual circumstances where you'll discuss slightly different things, but we're just going to have a look at that to show you the mechanics and remind you of some of the things that you can do. So as always, up the top, big blue button. Acre love big blue buttons. We're going to create a new case. And then when we create that new case, we're going to create a protection case. Okay, so we're going to go down and choose protection. And then we're going to choose a no fee scenario. You choose the fee scenario you set up. You'll have a no fee scenario possibly set up. Again, we just say to people, be cautious if you're doing mortgages, that if you're giving your client an IDD with no fee on it, and then you're going to do a mortgage the week later and you're giving them an IDD with a fee on, just make sure you've made them aware. You don't want to give that sort of IDD with the fee on and then your clients start to question why all of a sudden you're charging fees. So just be aware of it, that's all. You can set up a no fee scenario, or you can set up your standard mortgage fee scenario, and Acre is clever enough to know that this is a protection case. Okay, so it's just so you're aware when you're having those conversations. So you can search your clients, as you know. Acre's brilliant. You create the product and then you bring clients to it, or you can put in new clients. We're going to add in some new clients. You're probably familiar with them. They'll be the same old clients we use all the time, but that's really just to make sure that we can run the ID, and hopefully the ID search will work. But yeah, never work with children, animals, and technology live. So we're going to do Andy 01 05, and as long as my stubby fingers type everything correctly, hopefully it should work. Okay. Email address, I'm just going to pop mine in. And as I always say, if you're doing a test case, pop your own email address in here, and then you can look at the client's journey of the client portal. And you can also look at when any developments happen with the client portal, you can pop back in and have a look at what they look like as well. And then we'll just put a phone number in here. And then we'll save and close Andy. Okay. And then we're just going to add Samantha to the case as well. Again, you're probably all familiar with these names. We're using them all the time. So Samantha. Ollie, if I type anything wrong, jump in and tell me if I spell something wrong or something. Otherwise, it won't work when we do the testing. Okay, and her date of birth isn't that. Okay, start again. Her date of birth is the 1st of the 4th, 1982. I'm not going to give her an email address, okay, just for speed, that's all. But you would, if she, if it was appropriate, you'd give her you'd put her email address in there. So we have our two clients in. we have our protection case ready to go. And again, as you know, we could put more clients in there if it was appropriate. We, you know, with Acre, we can put up to 12, I believe, where it's appropriate. So you can put more in there. And then we're going to create our case. The verbal disclosure document will come up, and subject to you having confirmed that the clients have heard that, understood it, and accepted it, then you can pop your tick in the box here. If you haven't had the opportunity at this point when you're creating the original case to have that discussion, then obviously you can't confirm that, and you can just X out of this. But of course, you will need to make sure your client has an ID, your term IDD, your terms of business, before you really start going in, delving into discussing things like filling in a fact find and sharing information. If you cross out of this, then you will have to add it and confirm that the client's had it later. Most of you, in most cases, will have had this conversation with your client when you first speak to them, telling them what you do, how you do it, the scope of your service, etc. So most of you will be able to confirm that. But obviously, I don't want to say confirm it if you haven't, but most of you will have done. So we'll confirm and continue. Ollie, I've noticed the question about notes. I'll demonstrate that when we get into the case as well. Okay, so here we've got our case created. And as we always say, first thing to do over on the left is click on your show missing, and that will then bring up the things that will hopefully see help you go through. It's a bit like Acre putting his arm around you and saying, we've got your back, don't worry about it. You know, you've missed some things here, you need to get them. And if you click on your overview tab, you will always see your tasks down the right-hand side, okay? Just on the notes section, okay, if you scroll down here, you can see here's the notes tab here. If you just click on that, that will bring up the notes section. And in here, you would add any general notes, similar to you do down the right-hand side on the key, and they would be time and date stamped as you add them. So you put in the note and you click add the note. Okay, you can message the client direct via the portal from here, but you can't call them from here, you can't email them, and you can't SMS them. They are there so you can log that you've emailed them, you can log that you sent them an SMS, okay, if it's appropriate and you want them to. But that's where you would go to add any generic notes. Okay, so let's go back into the case, click on fact find. We're going to go into our case details. And then we're just going to answer these questions as they're appropriate to your individual client. So have you seen the client face to face? We're going to say yes. And then if it's an introduced client, when you click on yes, you can select the introducer. So you can select it came from Fred, it's come from Bill, etc., etc. But we're going to say no, because I haven't got any introducers in my test case anyway. So we're going to say no. And then, as I always say, the big blue button down here, if it's blue, click it until you get used to what the screens contain. If you see it, just click it, even if you haven't quite finished that screen. That way, then you're not going to move forward, not save any changes, and get frustrated. Okay, so if you see save changes, click save changes. Over on the left, we're going to go across and go into our client section. And then we're going to complete our client detail. Now you can see we've got some mandatory fields, but I'm going to complete some of the other fields as well, just because we're in a fact find. Again, if you haven't got this information, all of this information at this moment in time, you can't put it in. But if you've got information and you think, well, don't really need that, but it's asking me for it, then put it in. You know, if you've got that information, pop it in. Then you only need to put things in once. Okay, so again, excuse me while I type away. We're not going to make this case vulnerable. If you did make it vulnerable, then you would have the option to pick out what was appropriate for the client. If there's nothing in the drop down, you have the option to pick other. And then, of course, you would document in here what was appropriate around that vulnerability, what you've done, etc. Okay. Back up to the top, we've got our client details in here. We're going to add in a current address for Andy. So just bear with me a second. We're in Andy at the moment, and then we're going to do exactly the same exercise for Samantha. And of course, if we add more clients here, we do exactly the same exercise for those. So we're going to add Andy's current address. Normally, you would be able to put a postcode in and search for the address in the majority of cases. But because this is a made-up address, we can't do it by postcode. So we have to enter it manually. So we're going to pop in Andy's address, which is 116 Rowlands Close. It's in Training Town. Postcode is, whoops, 44. Where did I get 88 from? I've only been typing it for the last 6 months. ATZ. Okay. And we're going to say he moved in on the 2nd of the 1st, 2016. Again, as you're aware, if you have less than 3 years address history, then you're going to have to continue and put the 3 years address history in for a protection case as well, because we have to run ID searches on all authorized business. Okay, so protection, GI, PMI, etc. And it needs 3 years address history to do that. Okay, so if you've not got 3 years address history, you'd have to go in and continue to add more address history. Okay, so we're not going to put any dependents in. If you had a bank account at this time that the payment was going to be taken from, great. If you don't, okay, we can add it later. And does the client have a will? We're going to say yes, and they have reviewed it in the last 5 years. Over on the left, save our changes. Once you get used to the system, you can save your changes as and when you're comfortable that you've finished everything. But just until you get used to it, if it's over there, save the changes. Okay, what you don't want to do is move on and then have to do it all again. On a lot of the screens, it will say, are you sure you want to move on? But on some of them, it doesn't. Okay, so we're now going to do exactly the same for Samantha. I'll quickly do that. Well, theoretically, I'll quickly do it, and I'll do it correctly. Bear with me. I know you don't want to sit there and watch my stubby fingers enter data, but we need to go through it just to make sure everybody's aware of how you do things and what you do. So Samantha's got a slightly different address. Okay, so we're going to do exactly the same exercise. Again, you would be able to do the postcode. And in most circumstances, that postcode would find the address. But if you can't, then you can just enter it manually. I assume she lives across the road. Okay, and we're going to say she went there at the same time. And again, the data you would put in will be appropriate to your client, of course. Okay, and then as we always say, when we get to the suitability report, etc., please don't write what I write in. I'll just be writing guff in there and rubbish. Please don't write that in. Obviously, complete the report as it's appropriate for your client. Save your changes. So we've now completed our basic details for our clients. So we've done Andy first and then Samantha second. And then over here on the left-hand side, we're going to go to ID verification. And we're going to cross our fingers and everything else that we have and hope that this runs. So we've got Samantha first of all. You can see that this is all we need in order to run the ID. And there isn't any cost involved. Okay, so literally we run those checks and I hope it works. There we go. And then we'll do exactly the same for Andy. And you can do it in any order, of course. It was just that we were in Samantha's case at the time. Andy has failed in the past, but today he's going to be nice to us. Brilliant. Okay. So that's all that we need to do. If that happens on a protection case, then you do not need copies of the passport, etc. If it's a lending case, then you still need the copies of the passport, etc. But if you do it on a protection case and you get those results, then you don't need any further documents relating to ID. Okay, over here we've got credit. Again, if they've got any credit commitments, etc., pop them in if it's appropriate. If not, move on. Properties, again, we're not insuring the property. So again, if you want to add in the property just for completeness, you can do, but we're not insuring the property. But we are going to do some income protection and we're going to look at income and expenditure. We need to obviously demonstrate affordability. So I'm quickly going to add in income. So click on income. Andy, first of all, add in an income source, and we're going to keep it nice and straightforward. I know you may have different circumstances and you may have different scenarios, and I'll show you how you add in extra income, etc. But for today's example, we're going to keep it straightforward. And let's just say he started on the 1st and 2nd, 2, 6. It is his current employment. He's not expecting any income change. But again, if it's yes, then you would have further things to answer. Okay, but we're going to say no. We're just going to say he works for TRM, just because it's nice and easy and we know the postcodes and everything. Okay. And then when you're filling this section in, don't forget to scroll down, because this is where we need to put the income in. So we're just going to say he has 40,000. We're going to say it's annual. it's guaranteed, and I'm just going to make up a net figure. Okay. If he had more income from this particular job, overtime, bonuses, things like that, then you would add that in here because that's related to this particular job. If he had income from another source, then we would complete this. And then we would add that income from wherever that source is. Okay. If we were, I've just looked at Duncan's message. If we were protecting a mortgage, then we would need the property details in. But for our example, we're just going to do some life cover and some income protection. Of course, if you're protecting a mortgage, you'll need to know the outstanding mortgage because that's what you're protecting. Okay. If you've got another income source, then you'd click here and you put employment. Again, as I said before, for completeness, you can put the property in. I'm really just illustrating a protection illustration today, but yes, you would just literally click on there and then you would just add in the property details, whether or not it's a security address, okay, and whether or not they were doing it. But don't forget, these two actually live at a different address, so they might be taking out cover for future, okay? So depending on the situation would depend on how you fill that in. So back across to our income. Gosh, people are joining us a little late, or maybe they fell out and come back in and I haven't noticed. So I'm going to do exactly the same for Samantha. Okay. And again, really what we're doing today is to show you the mechanics of how you do it, and then your individual circumstances will dictate what you do. If they've got debt, you need to put debt in. You know, if there's lots of different situations, it's a fact find. You'd need to fully complete it. I'm conscious that we want to try and get in as much as we possibly can to show you how the system works and how we drive the suitability letters. And then you take that away and apply it to your individual client circumstances. So quickly, I'm going to do exactly the same for Samantha. Well, I said quickly. Yeah, it's not. Oops. Okay. Start again. Stubby fingers. That's because I said I'll quickly do it. If there are any network related questions that Ollie can't answer, we will pick them up at the end. And if I can't pick them up at the end or can't answer them today, then we will do a Q&A, as I said before, and I'll put them. Yeah, great question, Kevin. So when you've done the first address, it will, I'll quickly show you that. I'm trying not to look at the questions, but some of them are easy for me to quickly show you. So when you've done the client's first address, these live at a different address, but if they lived at the same address over here, you could just literally click on that and it'll say copy address to Samantha. We don't obviously want to do that because they live at a different address, but you can just copy it across, or vice versa. You can do it if you're in Andy's case, etc. Okay, no problem. Okay, so we've done our income, popped our income in. Again, if you've got different sources of income, retirement, etc., you would add them in here. And if there was any extra income within the employment, like overtime, etc., then you would add them in there. Okay. So across to expenditure. Now, you know that you need to have a conversation with your client and fill the expenditure in as it's appropriate to your client. I'm just going to use ONS data today for speed, but I would be cautious about using ONS data purely and simply. I need to go back there now. I bet they've not all saved. No, they have. I thought I hadn't clicked on save changes there. I'm going to use this for speed, but be cautious because, for example, if you use ONS data, it can bring up things that aren't appropriate to your individual clients. So, for example, they haven't got any children, but it's brought up childcare. Okay. I'm just using this for speed so that we can just get through quickly. So I'm just going to change a couple of them. But you would obviously fill this in as it's appropriate for your client. You can fill in, you can click on the ONS data, and then if some of it's appropriate for your clients, you can. But to be fair, that would probably take you just as long as actually having the conversation and filling it in. Okay, I was just making sure we've got enough down here. You would do affordability as it's appropriate to your client. I know that. Okay. So then we're just going to put in an agreed monthly budget for our protection. Okay, and if there are any expected changes in our client's circumstances, then we would pop them in here. I've just wrote that in like that so you can see that whatever you write in here will go through to the suitability report. Now, you could be putting in things in here like that outgoings are going to reduce because they're about to pay a loan off. Their outgoings are increased because they're about to get a pay rise, whatever's appropriate, or their outgoings or the circumstances are not changing. So no, whatever's appropriate, you would write in there, and then that will populate through to the suitability report. If you don't write anything in there, when you get to the suitability report, you'll have a box and you'll have the option to put something in there. Okay, so we're going to save those changes. Nice and straightforward. It's a fact find. Okay, so again, there may be in your circumstances, there may be more information needed, and in some circumstances, it'll be the same or slightly less information. So fill in the fact find as it's appropriate. Okay, over on our protection sourcing, we're going to go into pre-qualification, and this is questions around what the clients currently have or don't have. Okay, not the existing protection, just questions around whether or not they have any income, sick pay, etc. So how long would you be able to pay your mortgage and other outgoings should you not be able to work? There must be a time frame on that. It could be tomorrow, I'd run out of money, so a day, or it could be 5 years. But there must be a time frame on that. And what we're looking for here is, in theory, we're looking at the deferred period of their income protection. Okay, but again, it's a fact find. We're just going to say 1 to 3 months, and we're going to say they both have sick pay. If they don't have any sick pay, and this 1 to 3 months is coming from savings, put some notes in the notes section about where that's coming from, just as you normally would when you're having conversations with your client. This is allowing us to put in if that comes from their employer or an external policy, etc. But if they don't have any, just ignore this section. Okay, so we can do that, but I'm just going to fill in something from their employer and say their employer is going to give them, I know the figures wouldn't necessarily work, okay, but just give them that for 3 months. Okay, employer sick pay 2,600 for 3 months. And then we're going to save our changes. Now, those of you that's been on the training, and I know some of you are coming on the training next week, I think it is, and some came yesterday. Those of you that's been on the training will know that the replacement policy questionnaire, as the need for that has been removed, but that doesn't obviously absolve you from making sure that your client understands the advantages and the disadvantages. Those of you that's not been on your training, don't start asking loads of questions about it now. I'll explain when you do your training. But we need to drop a paragraph into the suitability report that says certain things around the fact that your client is replacing a policy. So in order to do that, there's certain things we need to do. So I'm going to show you that. So you go into existing protection, whether or not you're replacing it, and pop in any of your client's existing protection. So you would fill in here anything that they've got. Okay. If it so happens that what you filled in here, you're going to replace, then down the bottom here, should your client keep this policy, you would select no. And that will drop the paragraph into the suitability report that explains to your clients that they need to make sure that they fully understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, they fully understand the ramifications and the disadvantages, etc. Okay, but of course, if your client hasn't got any existing policies, you don't need to do that. If your client has got existing policies and they are keeping them, you still would list them, but then the client is keeping the policy. Okay, so it's really important if you're replacing any policies or you're replacing any policies that you know went off within the last 3 months, it's really important that you add them to the existing and then you tick no here. And that will drive that paragraph into the suitability report. Okay. So we're going to say no, just for speed. You don't want to watch me typing in existing policy details. You understand how to do that, and the questions are fairly straightforward. And then we're going to go to the requirements page. I'll come back to mechanics, etc., around portal and client portal and things like that when I'm showing you how to assign a case. So don't worry. Again, I just noticed the question there. So we've got pre-qualification. Have your clients got any existing how long would they pay the mortgage and the bills, etc. We've got any existing protection. So now we're going to go to the requirements that our clients are looking for. So do you want to limit your protection review in any way? If you say yes, then you could document how and why. It might be you want to limit it to a certain budget driven figure. You want to limit to a certain amount or a certain type. It depends on the individual conversation, okay? We're going to say no, because obviously we're not limiting it. And then in here, any objectives or what the client wants. So why are you doing this? What are we doing? What are your objectives? What are your circumstances? So you could write in here something like, during our discussions, you said it was important for you to make sure that should you die, your partner or your wife or whatever the circumstances arise, and I'm making this up as we go along, would be able to get 3 times your salary. And also you wanted to make sure that if you come out of work through accident or sickness and you're unable to work for longer than 3 months, you wanted to maintain as much of your current lifestyle as you possibly could. Whatever's appropriate to your client. Whatever you pop in here, I'm doing it like that so you can see where it goes. Whatever you pop in here will go into the suitability report, okay? So then we're going to create life and critical illness, and we're going to create some income protection for them. Again, this is the mechanics of it, okay? You will have different situations, you'll create different scenarios. It's just showing the mechanics, and then you can pick that up with your clients. So we're going to do some life and critical illness, okay? And we're going to do it for Andy. And we're going to do, it's going to be life or early critical illness. It's not met by an existing policy. And we're going to say 120,000. And what we're going to say is 3 times salary. Okay. Now, again, write in here. If you're writing anything in here, write it in appropriately because it will drop into the suitability report. Yes, you can amend it when you get into the suitability report, but why write things twice? Okay. We're just going to say a term of, how old is he? 44. So we're going to say a term of 24 years. And the reason for the term is to normal retirement date. Again, this is just an example. You would obviously make it appropriate to your client. So we're going to save and close that. So we've got 3 times death in service for Andy. So then we're going to do exactly the same for Samantha. Okay, we're going to select life or early kick. You could do life, you could do level. You know, I'm not questioning advice here. You could literally do whatever's appropriate for your client. This is just to give you the example. Reason for cover, 3 times salary. Okay. Term, I think she's a couple of years younger than him. So I think hers would be 24. I don't know. Let's just do 22 years. I can't remember her date of birth. You would obviously know, and you would take your time. Reason to normal retirement date. Okay. And then save and close. So again, if you were doing a straightforward case for one person and you were doing some life and critical illness, then it would be pretty straightforward. You would just go in and do one scenario, okay? Ollie, is there a reason that's red, or is it because it's a different client? I'm panicking because it's red.
No, it generally would show in red if there's maybe missing information or possibly the term. I think you said you didn't know the age, so it might be that.
Oh no, there you go.
That's why.
There we go. So Acre's got you back. If it's red, be paranoid. Okay, it will say you've missed something, you've not done something, but I've never seen it red before, so I wasn't quite sure if it was just somebody, if it was a different person. Thanks, Ollie. Okay, so we're going to add in some income protection. I'm trying not to be distracted by the questions. We will look at them and I will answer them, any that Ollie can't answer, but I'm just conscious of making sure we go through this. Okay, so we're going to go 3 months. And then you can put in a monthly amount here, but what we're going to do is we're going to say that, for example, let's say Andy wants a monthly amount, but Samantha wants maximum benefits. I'm going to do it in one circumstance just to show you that. So we'll say Andy wants £2,000 to maintain lifestyle. Okay. Again, whatever you pop in here will go through to the suitability report, so make sure you spell it correctly. We're going to say, Andy, we're going to say 24 years, okay? And the reason for term, normal retirement date. You do have the option, and I'll show you with Samantha, to select maximum benefit or an amount, and you will have the option to select to an age, okay? And I'll show you how to do that in a second. I believe it's in development for us to be able to do what I'm going to do in a second in here, but it's in development, okay? So save and close. And then we'll do the same exercise for Samantha, but hers is going to be slightly different because we're going to give her maximum benefit and we're going to give it her to age 68. So 3 months again. I'm just going to pop in a cover amount here. And then here I'm going to write maximum benefit. Okay, and the term, I'm just going to put in 24 years for now, because when we go through, we're going to change it to age. Okay, and then the reason for that is to normal retirement date. Please don't just write NRD on your suitability report. Okay, so just a quick recap. We've done our fact find as appropriate to our client. We've done all of this. We've added our life and critical illness for the individuals. We've added income protection for the individuals. If there's then family income benefit appropriate, if there's life, whole of life, etc. appropriate, then fine, you can add those in. Okay. Private medical insurance, we will have a separate session if you are private medical authorized only. And if you are mortgage protection and private medical, we'll put it on to the session that you have when you do your mortgage protection. Okay. So once you've done all of this and you're happy with all of your requirements, etc., and you've added in what you need to, and again, it may be shorter or longer than that exercise, then what we're going to do is going to go over to sourcing over here on the left. And that should bring our our sourcing page up. And then over here, we're going to generate our sourcing from our requirements page. We were just on the requirements page, so we're going to generate our sourcing. So you can see here, we've got our level term, income protection for Andy, and income protection for Samantha. We're happy with how those are. Okay. If you wanted this to be decreasing term, then you need to go in and edit it and change it to decreasing term. And you would do that here. Okay. And then you would change anything that's appropriate down here, whether or not they wanted fracture cover, etc., etc. We're going to leave it as it is, but we are going to change Samantha's income protection because we want maximum benefit for her and we want it to age 68 rather than the term. So we literally just click on the three dots here, we click on edit, and then we go in and do what we need to. So 3 months is our deferred period. Instead of monthly, we're going to say maximum benefit, okay? And then instead of a term, we're going to say to age 68. And then if we want to increase level from to RPI, etc., then we can do here. And if we want to discount limited benefits, we can do here. So even if you are going with an amount and a term, but you want to then add in things like indexation, etc., then you click on the three dots and edit. Okay, so this is where you would edit the plan. And then once you're happy with that benefit, you'd save here. So let's say, for example, you want to leave Andy's as it is, 2024 years, but you want to add in RPI, then you would just go in, edit, go down here and change that to RPI. And we're going to remove limited benefit. Okay. Save the benefit. Once you've got all of that and you're happy with everything and you've done everything that you need to, and again, this probably takes much longer to explain than it does to actually do. Once you're happy with all of that, then you just say, okay, can I have the results, please? I'll come back to that in a second, Kirill. Yeah, there is a way, and it's on that edit page. So there are our results. Okay. But just before we move on, because we're on this page, if you're looking at decreasing term assurance and you made that decreasing, when you get to the bottom here, it will default to 8%, but then you can leave it at 8 because our basic minimum for decreasing is 7, but you can change it if it's appropriate. But generally speaking, you don't need to anyway. Okay. So we've got our available solutions. So we've got the Exeter for Samantha, which is probably because we asked for max benefits. So most of the time, friendly societies will come up with the maximum benefit. But we've also got Andy from Cirencester, and we've got Legal in General for Andy's. And then down here, we've got another alternative. We've got Legal in General for Andy, Scottish Widows for Samantha, Cirencester for Andy, and income protection. So we can look at a multi-policy solution, or we can look at a combination, whatever's appropriate. Okay. And again, I'm not going to dive into advice and questions you would have for your clients today. You do that very well, and you'll do it as it's appropriate for your clients. But we could say, okay, let's just go with the multi-policy solution. It covers off everything. If we're happy with that, we save it to our shortlist. If you wanted to look at some alternatives, then we could look at, let's say, I don't know, Legal in General are not going to cover what we want, or we actually want global treatment. Okay, so we go into the alternatives, the same as you do in Solution Builder now, and then you would go and find Aviva, or if you wanted something from another specific provider, I don't know, like Guardian, because you wanted the guarantee or whatever it was, then you would select that exactly as you do now. So just select it and save and continue. And then you would explain why you've not used the most cost effective, exactly as you do now. So nothing's changed there. We're going to stay with legal and general, and we're going to, excuse me, we're going to save that to our shortlist. So we're going to save this multi-policy solution to our shortlist. You can save more than one solution to your shortlist, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. So be cautious. If you put too many things in your shortlist, it may get a bit messy, but you can remove products from your shortlist as well. So you might want them in there whilst you're having conversations with your client, but then you might want to remove everything except the one that you're going to recommend. So just be aware that you can do that. But again, be cautious of putting too much in here because it will get messy. You manage it, you manage it how you see fit. Okay. So we've got our policies here, our level term, income protection for Andy and income protection for Samantha. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and recommend those products. Okay. And over here now you can see that we've got our recommendation. So we're going to click over here on our recommendation, and we need to answer these questions. The middle one, we will only answer if any of the premiums go past normal retirement date. Okay. So the first one, was the client advised in regards to inheritance tax? Please put no, because you haven't got authorizations within the network to give advice regarding inheritance tax. And have you recommended any policy to be placed in trust? Again, where it's appropriate, put yes. Where it's not, put no. Again, have that debate about whether or not trusts are appropriate. And then, is there a particular trust you recommend? Okay, so you might put in here, I've recommended the trust because the right money goes to the right people at the right time. I'm just going to write right money, so you'll see it in suitability. And then you might put, I've recommended a split trust so that any critical illness benefits can be maintained by the provider. Whatever's appropriate, okay? And whatever you put in here will drop into the suitability. Okay. So then we're going to save changes. Have I missed seeing the policy all with the same provider? No, Joe, there's a possibility just in our scenario, because you've got friendly societies, because we use the maximum benefit, that they wouldn't all fit with one provider. It's probably because of the max benefit. If it's appropriate and there's a solution with one provider, it will come up underneath. It's probably just because it's our example. Okay. So we've answered that question. Okay, we're now going to go to our suitability report, and we're going to click on protection. And this is our suitability report. Now, where you see an optional field, you can put stuff in, or as it says, it's optional, so you don't have to. And if you don't put anything in here, when you produce the report, the box will disappear. It won't just sit there as a grey empty box. So you go down, remember we filled in their objectives. Okay, I wrote rubbish. You wouldn't write rubbish. And if you haven't written anything in the suitability, in the fact find, you can put it in here. You can also add to this if you want to. Okay. When you add to it here, it won't add to the box in the fact find, but you're updating the suitability report. So you can add to it here. You can amend it here, but why type things twice? So you can do it all in the fact find. You can do it all here. You can do some of it in the fact find and then top it up here, or you can amend whatever you've done. So really, really flexible. Okay, but try and think where you can and where it's appropriate and where it fits in with your process. Try and do as much as you can in the fact find, so that when you get here, your suitability letter's pretty much done. But it's got to work for you and it's got to fit in with your process. So you can see here that the details I put in around the life cover. So for Andy, 120,000 wide, based on 3 times salary. It's based to his normal retirement date. Again, you would write in what's appropriate to your client and what makes sense to your client. Okay, same for Samantha. And then we talked about his income protection for the term, the amount, and it was to maintain his lifestyle till normal retirement date. And then for Samantha, the same again. The requirement is to cover like it's 2,600, which is the maximum benefit. The term is 24 years, which was to age 68, with a starting after 13 weeks. Why? Maximum normal retirement date. Then a breakdown of the recommendations. So the Exeter income protection for her. And then we type in here why that's appropriate for her. So this is the why that I go on about all the time. So why is it appropriate for her to have Exeter income protection of that amount for that length of time? Sorry, that's Samantha. And then the same for Andy. Why is it appropriate? Again, please write in more than just rubbish that I'm writing in. Samantha, her Scottish Widows plan that we chose. Okay, why is that appropriate? So again, we pop in why. And then for Andy, legal and general, or whatever you chose, if you went to Aviva, etc., whatever you chose. I'm going to go back and show you how you apply and where you add the documents, etc. But we go through and do the suitability report first because we've made our recommendation. We're then doing our suitability. I also know that you wouldn't necessarily do all of this within the same sort of 10-15 minute time period. Okay, you may make your recommendation, you may go and apply, you may then come back and complete your suitability report. As long as it's done within the 5 working days, then fine, because you can save your changes and then come back into this report and carry on and amend if you need to. And then once you're happy, you would publish your report. Okay, so I know that you won't necessarily do this all at the same time. There will potentially be time frame gaps. So you can see I recommended this policy placed in trust because the right money to the right people at the right time, and you recommended a split trust, okay? And then you've got your normal remaining considerations. If it's appropriate here, pop in the box that you know the client will contact you in the future. Circumstances change, please contact me. You might want to write something in there if it's appropriate. If you don't have anything that's appropriate, leave it blank. It will disappear when we publish the report. Okay, and there's your suitability report. So quite straightforward. I know it's a straightforward case, but whatever you do in the fact find will be generated through to the suitability report. And then, of course, you go in and make it even more personal if it's appropriate to your client. Once you're happy with what you've done on there and you've checked everything, you can save your changes. You might not be ready to publish the report at the moment. You might be just going through and starting things. It depends on your circumstances. So I'm just making you aware you can save the changes and you can come back in and change that report. But once you've saved those changes, if you're happy with everything, you can then publish the report. I'm just going to go back up to my overview tab and make sure that we've got nothing outstanding. You can see here, we've got outstanding, publish our protection suitability report. Okay. So we'll go back to our suitability, we'll go back into our protection, and we'll publish our report. So sometimes if you think, oh, just before I do anything sort of finalized, if you like, I'm just going to go and check my overview and make sure there's only that outstanding. Okay. If you get to the situation where you can't publish the report, there's something missing or there's something wrong. So if there's something missing, like yesterday, we had people that hadn't put the same information in that I put in. So when they ran the ID check, it failed. So it wouldn't allow them to publish the report. So when you went into the overview, it would say you've missed the ID, you've missed this, you've missed that. Also, administrators can't publish suitability reports. They can complete them based on what you've told them, etc., but they can't publish them because they don't have authorizations. Obviously, anything that administrators create for you as an advisor, you need to confirm that's correct. So advisors can publish reports, but administrators can't. But they can create them, they can complete them, subject to them having the right access, etc. Okay. So once you're happy with everything, publish your report. You can, if you want to, send it via the portal. Okay. It does not email it to your clients, and it is not mandatory that your client signs it. If you send it via the portal, then you have proof that you sent it. In our example, you can't send it via the portal for Samantha because there's no email address on file, so she can't have a portal access. If you think, okay, that's fine, I'm going to send Samantha a separate suitability report via an email, or I'm going to send both of them via an email, then you would just say, okay, no problem. And you'd say, no, I'm going to send it a different way. Okay. So depending how you send it, the report depends on how you give it to your client, but you still need to evidence that you've sent it. So you either send it via the portal and that will evidence it, or you do it as you may do now, where you send it via an encrypted email and then you upload the email. Okay, but you need to still show proof that the suitability letter has been sent. Okay, we're just going to do it this way for simplicity. Okay, there's a copy of the report. It will drop into your documents tab. Okay, but there's a copy of the report, and you can see that the grey boxes have disappeared. So where we had optional, we didn't put anything in, we haven't got a blank grey box. Okay. So go back to our overview. What have we got outstanding? So we've got a couple of things outstanding here. We've got to upload the application form, the customer wellbeing assessment, because the customer wellbeing assessment is the same. It says digitally signed, but it doesn't need to be signed, does it? No, it doesn't, Rob. When you send it via the client portal, it says to the client, please type your name here as it is above. And when they do that, it will digitally sign it. If they go no, then it's okay. Okay, we don't need it signing, but you'll find probably that most clients will. Okay. If you publish a suitability letter that you've just done, is that proof? No, it's not, Matthew. You have to prove that you sent it. So once you've published it, you have to then say that tick box, either I've sent it via the client portal, or if you don't do that, you would tick no in those answers. And then you would upload the document and you'd upload the proof of sending it via email. So you still need to prove you sent it either via the client portal. And if you tick those boxes and send it via the client portal, then that's proof that you sent it. If you haven't given that client access to the portal and you're not sending it via the portal, then you do it via the way that you do now, and you upload that evidence. Okay. So back onto our overview page before we go into the documents, etc. So what we have here is how we would do some of the questions that I've seen coming up here. So what we would have here is we would have the opportunity to send the invite to our clients. Now we would do that very early on in our fact find. And we would also have the opportunity, if we published a report, I think I saw a question come up there, if we published a report and we need to actually go in and change something, so an amendment, an addendum to that report, then we just roll back the status of the case. That takes us back to allow us then to create another report. Okay. So we'd be in our overview tab, roll back the status. If we want to send the client an invite to the client portal, then we can. Okay. So we're going to look at how we've submitted the application. We've not done that yet. We're going to look at that in a second. We're also going to look at where we add the documents, and we're also going to look at any sort of alternatives, etc., just to remind you. So once you've done everything that we've done, and I'll recap, once you've completed your fact find and you've gone through and you've filled in any information, once you've done your protection sourcing and you've got your products and you've made your recommendation, once you've completed your suitability report and you've published that report, okay, assuming that those things will happen over a period of time, they won't all happen in 2 minutes. Once you've done that, then click on your overview tab, and this will give you the tasks that you need to do. So as every piece of business, we have to upload our wellbeing checklist. So you'll have completed that as you do now, whether you have it as a PDF, a Word document, you complete that as you do now, and you upload it the same way that you upload it on the key at the moment. So we're going to click on that. But if you don't want to click on the tasks, you can just come across to your documents and click on the documents tab. It will take you to the same place. Okay. So we're going to click on the task, the wellbeing checklist. And then we're going to go over here to the little cloud with the arrow here, and we're going to upload our wellbeing checklist. So we're going to click on here and we're going to say, yeah, we want to upload it. Now, remember that this will go to the last folder that you were in. So make sure it's the correct client folder and you're uploading the correct documents. So wellbeing checklist, you can drag and drop it. Okay. You can double click it, or you can highlight it and click open, whichever works for you. Yes, you can upload more than one document at once. You would just select them, and then as you upload them and name them, these boxes would continue to pick up. This is very, very important. When you're uploading the customer wellbeing checklist, the document type, some of you that were on the early training will have been told to call the document type internal. We were concerned that advisors might forget that they need to name it internal and might just name it checklist or something like that. So because the wellbeing checklist is always going to be an internal document, it could have done some stuff behind the scenes to make sure that when you put it in, if you call it the wellbeing, so if you start to type wellbeing, if you call it the wellbeing assessment and nothing else as a document type, then it will automatically be an internal document. You verify that document and obviously upload the document and proceed with the same for Andy as well. That showed that you've done both of them at the same time, but if you've uploaded them individually, then fine. My point there is make sure the document type is called well-being, and that will automatically make it internal. You can still call it internal, but if you just put well-being, you're not going to forget. Okay. So then we want to go back and we want to add our other documents and go off any tasks that we need to do. So back to our overview. Please upload your application form. Okay, well, let's assume we've applied for it, but I'm going to show you where you can apply. You might just go externally, but if you go back across to your products where we were before, and you go into your products, we're going to do a couple of things in here. You can apply. That will take you straight through to the Exeter's extranet in this instance, and you go through, and the same for Cirencester, or you can do it externally, okay? And what you also need to be aware of with protection, when you have the application form, so when you've done that application and you've applied and you've got the copy of the application form, you need to add it to the product. So you'd come back to your products over here on the left, you'd click on details, okay? Click on documents, and then click on upload. And then you would upload the application form for this particular application the same way. Okay, so we're just going to drag that in and drop it in there. And that's the insurance application. We're going to verify that that's Samantha's application for Exeter. If you have these figures, put them in. But you may not have a fully underwritten quotation yet. You may have submitted the application, fully underwritten application. You may have submitted the application and you're waiting. You may not have got an instant decision. So that's fair enough. So if that's the case, then leave those boxes blank and upload the document. You will have to fill them in when you come to complete the case. And at that time, you will have the underwritten premiums. So for the others, I'm just going to quickly do that and upload them and say we have the premiums. So I'm going to invent premiums for them. It does automatically pull the documents back from Solution Builder. I'm not sure if it pulls them back from the provider. So again, you would probably have to make sure you download them from the provider, things like the application form, etc. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly verify Andy's documents. I'm going to write some premiums in. I can't remember what they were. Okay, I'm going to put some commission in. Renewal commission, I don't know. And then we'll say that that starts at month 48. Okay. Come on, upload. Have I missed something? I'll try. I've got the insurance application form there. Okay. See if it kicks it in. Got everything in. Upload the document. Sometimes it just needs a little bit of a kick. Okay. So when you're actually administering your case, the best thing to do is go to your overview tab and see what you've got outstanding. We know we've still got a couple of protection documents outstanding. So I'm just going to go back there. It jumped to the first case because I kicked it. Okay, so we've done the first two. I'm just going to quickly do the second two. I'm going to leave these. I'm just going to write them in. Okay. 50 quid. Those of you with good memories will tell me that it wasn't 50 quid, it was 35 or something like that. Of course, you would put the correct amount in. Okay, and then finally, we'll do the bottom one. Apologies for you sitting watching me upload documents, but it's important you know the journey. But obviously, it's the same journey for each one. You can tell I don't follow commissions, can't you? I'm just making this stuff up. That would be a good renewal commission, wouldn't it? Okay, so again, you've uploaded all of your documents. We're now going to go back to our overview tab and we're going to say, okay, what's outstanding? So we're going to confirm that we've submitted the application. We're going to say, yeah, the application has been submitted. And then we're going to complete the case. So here you can see that on the Exeter one, we haven't got a final premium. So it's asking us for that final premium. So if there were any sort of underwritten after underwriting, any increase in premium, etc., or there was any change, then we can put it in now. If we had it when we were actually uploading the documents, we could put it in then. So it's not forcing you to do it because you might not have the details, but I'm just going to put in those details now. Policy number, this is no different to what you do now. Once you have the start date, etc., you put the policy numbers in. Let's put the policy start date, I don't know, let's do it today. If it's indemnified or non-indemnified, I saw somebody looking before asking that question. So if it's non-indemnified, you would put the non-indemnified commission in. If it's indemnified, you put the indemnified commission in, and then any renewal commission, whatever is appropriate to a specific case, okay, for yourselves. And then next, it'll take us through to his, and you can see that we've got his premium in, but we need to put his policy number in. We need to put his start date in. 24, okay. And then we'll say that it's 48 months. I think that's brought through because I put it in on the other one. If you'd put it in correctly on the first one, you wouldn't need to change anything. Okay. Okay, come on. Oh, we've moved on. We've gone to the next one. Okay, so policy number. It might not like that little sign there. Should take that out. 28. 1, 6, 2, 4. There's our commissions. So next. And then finally for the legal and general one. And if you've got one policy, this would be quicker. If you've got more policies, it'd be slightly longer. Okay. Check that you've got all the details correct. And then ACRE does a couple of really good things once you're completing a policy. It says, do you want me to set a reminder for you? Now, I know you might think that's not really appropriate on protection because you wouldn't necessarily have an end date for something, but you might want to say, actually, a year after I set up any protection plan, I want to do a review with my client. I want to have just a general conversation and send out a survey just to see if anything's changed in the last year. Whatever it is, you might say, yeah, actually, I want to do that. I'm just going to set up that reminder. Or you might say, no, thanks very much. I don't need to set up a reminder. I've got another system that I type things into, whatever. So you would just skip it. So whatever's appropriate. So this just pops up and says, do you want us to set your reminder up? And you can say, no, thanks. I don't need to. It'll say, okay, thanks very much. Here's all of the details you put in. Are they correct? Yeah, okay, we'll mark that case as completed. And that case will now be completed. And on your dashboard, it will be completed and everything's done on that. Okay, so there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on and then I'll check the questions. I know we're overrunning slightly, but I wanted to make sure that I went through that. So a couple of things that I'll touch on. I'll have a look at the questions. Any that we don't get to, we'll put on the Q&A, and any that Ollie's not been able to answer, we'll have a look at and we'll put them on. So how you can assign a case to somebody else in your firm. You literally can do whatever you want to in the case, so the amount that you do, etc., whatever it is that you want to. I'm just going to come, I don't know if it'll let me do it in here because I've completed it. So I'm just going to come into another case. I'll just literally get a protection case. Okay. So if you wanted to assign this case to somebody within your firm, for whatever reason, you might be going on holiday, you might be doing something different, I don't know, for whatever reason, if you wanted to assign this case to somebody within your firm, it helps if the case opens. Then you can literally go into the case and then up here, you can go across and reassign the case. And you can reassign that case to whoever you've got access and ability to do so. So you can reassign it to anybody that's within your acre, within your firm. Okay, so you can reassign it. If you do it that way, you can still both edit the case. So you might say, here's some information. I'm just waiting for some documents. I'll pop them in, but at least you can start on it. Whatever's appropriate to you. You can both still edit that case, but only the person that the case has been assigned to can publish the suitability report. Okay, so that's one way that you can assign something. If you've done 98% of the fact finding, you're going away on holiday and you just wanted somebody to pick something up or whatever the reason is, you can do it. The other way that you can assign a case to a specialist within your firm, let's say you're a mortgage provider and, sorry, not a mortgage provider, a mortgage advisor, and you have a specialist within your firm and you want to be able to do the mortgage, but then within that mortgage, assign a protection task across to somebody within your firm. I'm just waiting, my acre doesn't seem to update very quickly. Okay, so let's get a mortgage case. So let's again make the assumption, these are just possibilities, but let's make the assumption that you're in the case and you're going through, you do your fact find, etc. You do your mortgage sourcing, and then when you go into the protection case, you actually want to send this to somebody else. Okay. Just bear with me a second. So you go into the fact find of this particular case, and under the case details, I don't know if my acre's running as slowly when you're seeing it as I'm seeing it, but it seems to be taking a really long time to do this. And then under protection here, you can go down the bottom here and say, would you like to conduct a protection review as part of this case? Yes, I would. I'm the mortgage advisor. I do all of the protection. Or no, I wouldn't. And then you would create a separate protection case. When you click on create a separate protection case, you then have the option to assign that protection case to whoever. So if you've got Fred Blogs or whoever within your firm that does all your protection, you can continue doing the mortgage and you can assign this across to somebody else in your firm. And you can say to them, okay, can you, I don't know, look after protection? You would probably write more comprehensive notes than this, but look after protection. In here, I want you to do it on such and such a day. Again, you would put what's appropriate. It's really, really easy for you to do. You can change that to a general, you can change it to a review, and then you can type in what you want them to do, bit of information, and then you save and close that. And what that will do is that will create a reminder in their acre for them to go and do something. So of course you wouldn't just keep this a secret and let them go and figure it out. You'd say, I'm going to send you reminders for my mortgage cases. You go in on a Monday morning and check any reminders, make sure you're following them up. Okay, so you can do it from a case. You would go into the fact find, into the case details, into protection within the mortgage, and then do that. Or you can, at any point, go into the overview and you can reassign the case from the cog. Okay, so you just reassign it and then reassign it to whoever. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, I'm not sure if Ollie's answered all of the questions. Ollie, were there any sort of a network questions that you couldn't answer, or have you managed to answer them?
No, I think they were all pretty protection related. There was only one question for sort of the network, which was around completing impersonation checks if you are not seeing your clients face to face, and how you would go about doing that. That was it.
Okay, brilliant, no problem. So within the client portal, your clients can, I haven't got this set up, so I'll have to try and verbalize it for you. Within the client portal, your client can then go in and complete in-person personalization checks. So they can do, some of you have probably seen it with the bank. They can upload their own passport or a picture of the passport or the driving license. Then they can take a selfie, and that will do an ID and an impersonation check. Okay. I believe if you go into the knowledge base, there is an article on that. we go into knowledge base and we pop in on Fido. Whoops. Then you've got here how that's done. Okay, so again, there's a walks you through what your client will see, how your client will see it, what they need to do. Okay, so lots and lots of information. Most of the time, I can't say every time, and Ollie will probably correct me on this as well. Most of the time, the ID check will work, because if we think about the ID check, let's just have a look at that. Most of the time, you will have, come on, Aka, kick up. You will have this information. You can see it's not a great deal of information. And I think I saw earlier on about the 3 years address history. There needs to be 3 years address history in order to run that ID check. So most of the time, this information you will have, and most of the time it will just work. Okay. If you're not using the portal, so non face-to-face and not on the portal, you will need to get your clients to either do it on Fido, and if not, then you would need to somewhere demonstrate how you've seen your clients. That could be a Zoom or a team meeting, and your clients having that document, they can send you a copy of the document, and then you can do a Zoom or a team meeting. But you have to be able to identify who you're actually dealing with. Okay. Let me just, so I'm not waffling on here, let me just stop that